everyone.
Heidi-ho.
Matt's a little tired today.
I'm a lot tired today.
We're just going to let him be how he is, because that's what we do at United We Own. And I'm Jenny. This is Matt. And we're so excited to be back for our Thursday mini podcast. Today, I'm so excited to talk to our dear friend and board advisor, Lauren Reek. She is so amazing. I have so many questions for her. I'm sure you do too.
She's a truly amazing human. She's not just... She brings it all to the table. She teaches a lot of different things for us. Oh, there she is. Say hello.
Oh, hi, Lauren. And any moment, the magical...
Oh, right. She has to request.
Instagram world. Well, luckily, Lauren is much more tech savvy.
She's
than
incredibly
we are.
savvy.
We generally ask her for advice. Hi, Katie. Officer Katie. Oh, Rachel Bodie. Hi. Yay! Okay, yes, I want to Morgan. Hello. Yes, we all want to go live with Lauren Reek. We do. Here she comes. Yay!
Hello.
How are you?
Gosh, so good to see you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, perfect. It's so good to see you both. Doing pretty well, hanging in.
Oh, you look wonderful. You look glowy from the inside, as always.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so good to be on here with you guys. So good to see you, two of my favorite people.
Oh, we feel the same. I've been thinking about this all week and like, okay, Jenny, you get Lauren's attention for a while and like, what are all the things that you want to know and want to ask? And so I'm ready in my mind. I'm sure you are too.
Yeah, fire away if you got something.
Well, the first thing is just because, you're so awesome. And sometimes I think we forget to introduce the people that we love because we know them so well. So if you were to, share with folks that know you or don't know you, who are you and what is your journey that brings you here today?
Good question. It's funny. I always say, like, now in the space that I'm in, where when people used to ask that during like classes in college and stuff, like, oh, tell us about yourself, I would be like, can I leave? Like, I would like forget who I was. It's like, you think you're like, there's nothing interesting that I like to do. I need to like start a hobby or something. But I feel in a very different space now. So my experience that brings me here, being a yoga teacher and my path of yoga, and really it's just been such a transformative experience. And what I've experienced, and I said, well, everybody needs to know these things and to have these different tools. And it's led me on a path to find other modalities and other tools to really help me get to like who it is underneath there and get rid of a lot of the things that I've learned that are not, who I am, but I thought were, and really just being able to then be at a place where not only can I find that balance for myself, but to then share it forward with others. And I'm trying to, we met also, so this is like tied together. We met at the Bounce place.
That's right.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
It's
your mother
so funny
was doing a fundraiser because your mother is a powerhouse in the nonprofit world. Yes.
I was volunteering at a fundraising event and totally unrelated to yoga and the world that we're in. And we had met through that, which was so interesting now looking back. So things like that have been in my life. And to see that, like, wait a second, it's yoga and nonprofit and all these amazing things. And I was pregnant with my daughter at the time, I remember. And my mom said a funny thing, like, that I was looking for paid work at the time. And you were like, we pay our teachers. And we were all like, whoa, what is this, like, mystical thing? So to be able to do that, and then that I was able to eventually, with the support of United We Own, be in teaching in hospitals and be teaching in group residences of places that I've seen the insides of before. And then to be able to come in with that prior knowledge and with my yoga and meditation, it's been such an amazing like marriage together And just really, like I said, seeing all these other tools that I've been able to use. So it's a combination of yoga, of meditation, of how we fuel our bodies, how we fuel our minds. So that's given me the professional role of yoga teacher and holistic health coach, but it's really how to bring these practices and philosophies to all areas of our life, not just that little rectangle of the mat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and I just there's so much that I want to ask you and speak with you about, and I just want to take a little moment to insert how unbelievably phenomenal you are as a conduit of the practice to so many different communities with United We Om. I mean, I've personally got to witness you teaching in behavioral health center. Matt got to witness you teaching.
Sharing with the special needs community.
And I mean, you're just, and your introduction and how you describe who you are and what your journey is, I think answers that question of how does Lauren manage to connect with all these different communities? It is so special, and we're so honored to, to call you a part of this work. So thank you. And I'm kind of I just want to start with this that I really want to hear from you about, because I know you have two beautiful children at home with you now. Thank you for sharing her with us. And you've been talking a lot online. If you don't follow Lauren R Yoga, definitely about finding space for yourself. And finding space to feed yourself. Our children are screaming in the background. They're older than yours. I don't know what their excuse is. So what I would love to know as a mother, I see these posts and I know there's some other parents watching right now, because I can see it is so hard. I found it so hard to do what you do. So I know that the answer is not I just do it. What are those things that you are doing for yourself, and how did you build that muscle to be able to do that?
It's still a work in progress, for sure. And I think that for me, seeing the transformative power, I believe in them now. So I know from that place, all right, it works, you have to do it. And I have, thankfully, that yoga teacher mindset that through all this experience that I can kind of talk myself through it sometimes. And, what would I tell someone else to do, right? And there is definitely a discipline to it, for sure. And I think it's allowing myself to experience it. Then I see that, oh, this works. And that's the motivator. So getting a taste of that slowing down really reconnects me with myself, and where I'm oh, this is who you are. Not that craziness, not, yelling and running around. And it's just that opportunity to kind of in a positive way, unravel a bit, we get so wound up, and to have that opportunity. And even just for a minute, I'm telling you, 5 breaths, right? One breath, it makes that difference. And so I think a big thing is allowing myself the space for it to be a lot shorter, and for it to really be different and not have to look a certain way too.
I have a big problem with that. I sometimes feel if I can't get in 75 minutes, what's the point of meditating less than 30 minutes? Come on. So I feel you. That's really cool. Can you just share something for me? What is one of those little short, kind of things that you feel it takes you and hits the notes you need, and then wraps it up?
I want to add on to that, because I love that question. How does it look inside of a day in the life of Lauren? How are you fitting those things too?
Okay, good question. So what I would say for all of us, it's going to be different. But Matt, I would say try what is one pose that you have felt good in the past? Whether it's restorative or even just, I know, going through sun breaths of reaching up, reaching down. I feel my body oh, there's a little tightness there. Just anything that really helps you to even have that awareness brought about of into your body and into your breath. And the sun salutation. I think that also for me, when I've gotten to the point where it had to be shorter practices, I was even more thankful for them, where I'm okay, this is working. And then, yes, we do have to, I will say, side note, kind of, that becoming a parent to one made me so much better at time management than like any course could have. It really like, I just had to be, because it's like that things don't keep running then, right? And as we know, we have to take care of ourselves to keep those things running, that it's like just finding what are those quick little fixes of things that are helpful. So I would say, even just for yourself, like say, all right, I'm gonna trust Lauren for a moment, and I'm gonna do 5 sun salutations today and see where that takes me. And I know personally, from 1 to 5, like, you know, from when you first start, like there's a change. So allow yourself to feel that shift in the smaller spaces. And then you can kind of lean into that trust for yourself, and just knowing that it doesn't have to, I can't tell you the last time I did 75 minutes, but I'm practicing every day, you know, like, and those 75-minute practices, yes, they're amazing, and they just really like fill you up. And for me, that's kind of become like the like retreat version, you know, like where you have the extra time and you can really cultivate that space. But I know for me, what's more realistic is going to be 10 to 15 minutes sometimes. Sometimes, yeah, half hour, an hour, totally. But committing to that 10 minutes is like, and this is a big, you know, pillar of what I teach in general too, is that like, what's better is that you're going to do 75 minutes once a month, or you're going to do 10 minutes every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And from interacting with you, even with a newborn and, you know, a little one, I mean, you are the living example of, you know, taking those micro breaks, you know, keeping you centered and grounded in a way that I know that I wasn't necessarily able to do for myself because of that. And maybe, you know, that's something that's in our modern Western mindset around yoga, which is, I know, something we all share about wanting to like ask, like, does it have to be this way? Because it's really interesting to me that you come from, like, you're very connected to your Ashtanga yoga background, right? Mm-hmm. Which is like a sequence that takes like a certain amount of time. Yeah. But I love that you found your way to like still connect with that and to experience it in a way that's like a householder way. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Are there any other things or practices that you learned in a traditional sense, which I feel like a lot of us learn in a way that isn't very householder friendly, that you found that you've adapted to being like a person in the world here as you are?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so yes, I do love Ashtanga. And even so now, what you asked before too, like what does my everyday kind of thing look like? And now I'm able to move more, coming back from having a C-section and from just being able to move my body now. So that had to adapt entirely too, where it couldn't be that physical, rigorous practice. And it was breathing, it was meditating. And I think now shifting to like, how does it look versus this strict and rigorous thing, is that applying it to our lives, applying it to any tough situation going on. And so one example that comes up in my mind, which I don't do this perfect by any means all the time, but it's a practice. And it's even so, if we think about like, what are we doing during meditation? And a lot of times we're trying to slow down our thoughts, or slow down and, back off on our reactions to things. And like, I like to say it's like lengthening our fuse, where like a distraction comes up and like, at first you're like, what is it? And then over time you're like, okay, wait, hold on, don't react. And then maybe you like peek. And then, or even like when I do my Ashtanga practice and it's in a room and it's like someone comes in and you want to see who it is. And, at first you're like looking. And then over time you're like, nope, don't look. Like, and over time, then you just don't look. And it becomes, this like second nature. So an example with, let's say, kids, and when they're asking you something a million times over and over and over, right? That's kind of like a different way to look at those other thoughts and those other distractions, and like, how do we react or do we not react? Because sometimes it's just not reacting is the best way. But so things like that, really shifting, and I think expanding what is the practice, right? Like for so long, I thought it was going through movements, and it's really instead like how we go through our day.
Yeah, I'm really curious how that has expanded for you. With the birth of our second child, it sort of seemed like, how could I ever love somebody as much as I love my child? And then all of a sudden you have this capacity to love this other being with the same level of intensity and passion and just intimacy. And so I'm curious, because you talk certainly about how the physical practice has changed, but how has the depth of the practice changed? And maybe even how does your relationship to that idea of union and connection sort of changed as a new mom for the second time?
Motherhood in general for me, it has been the ultimate practice. Like when we, no, it's not, it is, physically demanding, but when we think about like just mental and the devotion and the heart and the surrender and a lot of things that we have to balance, and that, shifting of effort and ease at different times, really. And I love, I don't know where it is, but it's a story, and it's about Krishna and his mom, and when he like comes back and he's a baby, and his mom like looks into his eyes and she sees like the cosmos.
Yes.
And she sees like just everything that has ever been and will ever be like in his eyes. And it's like she's in shock, and he has to veil her eyes so that she doesn't see that because it's too overwhelming. And I definitely like feel that a lot, where it really has deepened that connection so much. And just seeing like from the starting of a seed, and really, I think also like the patience and trust for things to develop, that's shown me a lot too, where seeing like literally how a being comes to be, right? And that has definitely been a lot for me in connecting with that unity, and seeing too now patterns that have come up for me in the past, patterns that either I've already handed down and I see, or patterns that come out of my mouth and I'm like, that's not true. And it's things I'm just like repeating or rehashing.
Yeah,
and
that's
so it's
interesting.
yeah, it's given me definitely just this wonderful opportunity to reflect inward and see and choose. And like I said, I never claim to do it right, like perfect, but it's even when it's like a few moments and, building on that, like I said, where versus a 75-minute practice, even if just we can get it right for a few minutes and build on that.
Always very inspiring to talk to Lauren, isn't it? Whenever I speak with you, I always leave with this feeling of like, I can do it. And that's it.
That's because Lauren's so that's because she's doing the work. She's practicing it every day. And it's not a matter of just like, I'm physically doing these movements or I find my favorite shape, but you're practicing the practice. You are like with the big P, like you're doing the work. No, you're really doing that work of like, how do I move through this world and utilize what I do learn in bits of moments of asana and meditation on the mat, and how do I move through the world now with that? So yeah, she's always blows her mind.
I know.
Great, standard Lauren.
Thank you both.
I have more.
Yeah.
On this note, something else that you are so brilliant and passionate about, I also have been feeling more and more interested in, and I think a lot owing to you and the time I got to spend with you during the pandemic when we got to do cool online courses. And I had been following you, and I'd always loved to see the recipes you post, and like you post pictures of these beautiful meals, and then you'll just write what it is and how simple it was to do it. And I, for my own self, was like, Lauren, will you teach an online workshop of like, how do you take what's in your cupboard and like make something really healthy with it? And sitting in that workshop, we will link to it from our Instagram. Lauren has practices with us, and we'll also link to that workshop she did, which was so great. So it got me even more thinking about how impossible perhaps it is to siphon off our mental health and physical health into this yoga, meditation, breathing capsule, and then have like what we put in our bodies and hydration and food and nutrition in this like other conversation. It's really, more and more I'm struggling with like, how is an organization even, can we say like, we're about this, but we're not addressing this, which for my own self, I feel has almost as equal, if not more, of an impact on my well-being if I'm not drinking enough water or I'm not eating the right food. So how do these two things, like, how did they come through you together, and where are you now with the relationship even thinking of it still as yoga, you know, of including those things in your practice?
So for me, I used to not care at all what went into my body. It was like, and I felt it like, and I was having a conversation with my dad the other day and saying how like, I haven't been to McDonald's in so long and I don't eat meat anymore or anything. But I was like, you know, in high school, I would go wasted to the McDonald's drive-thru, eat 2 double cheeseburgers, French fries, and like a cinnamon thing. And we were just like talking about how like, wow, what was that doing, you know, to our bodies? But I will say also bodies are resilient. They can recover. And it's, you know, when we do make those changes. So, you know, but just discussing how I felt at the time too, you know, it was a major thing. And it's really hard, and similar to with the practices, if we don't experience it to really understand what a difference it makes. You know, you can hear me say it over and over and over, but until you give it a shot and you experience that, and that could happen from one meal even, that you have this really nourishing, and that's what I kind of say, like, try it out. Just try. Have, you know, find like a way that you can just try out one of these simple meals. One of my favorite simplest things, like I get like a bag of riced cauliflower. I get a bag of frozen veggies, mix them together on the stove. You could put a little soy sauce or coconut amino. And so simple. Yes. There you go. And so it's things like that afterwards, then just checking in and seeing how you feel from it. Because so often, too, that's the root of a lot of things where maybe you don't have the motivation to physically move then because you're feeling so bogged down and you're just feeling so lethargic. And it's really, for me, when I started to see the difference of how I felt with different meals, I was like, okay, I have more time now. I have more energy, that really seeing the ripple effect of it. So my suggestion, try with one meal here, one meal there. I think the best thing is just to even shift more to eating at home. And I know that can seem like a big thing. So checking out that workshop.
Had a lot of practice this year.
Yeah.
And experience too, right? I mean, not everybody likes broccoli. Not everybody likes carrots. And if you sit down to a plate of steamed broccoli, you're like, I fucking hate healthy food. But you might really dig, you know, if you just throw a little something else on there. And I feel like it's like that with everything. It's like the yoga. It's like the meditation. I'm not, you tell me to sit quietly, but if you tell me to count my breaths, I can do that forever. So it's really weird, right? How these like little moments that kind of tie. So, do you have something?
I just want to highlight just out loud for myself and everyone. Just give it a try. Like this is like the theme that I'm hearing coming from you. Just so simple but perfect for all of these things. Like, don't feel like you need to, you know, cut off this whole thing that you're used to doing in one day.
Yeah.
Try. Morgan says so. Yeah, just
give
it a try.
Yeah, it's not one or the other. It can totally be both. And it's, you know, sometimes I notice too where I'm like, oh, I'm going a little bit more towards the convenience, especially, you know, running back and forth to the hospital and everything when Indy was born. And it was easier and I had to do more convenient things and couldn't be home as much and I didn't have the energy, the effort to do all of that. So it's like, I gave myself that grace to go to the other direction when I needed it, and then realize, okay, now I need to do the things that I know make me feel really good, and I have more space now, so let's go back to the other direction. And it's this like, you know, recalibrating as we go through. And if I said to myself it needed to be all this way, it wouldn't work. I know that's the way that I work, is it wouldn't work if I told myself it had to be all the time, every single thing, every meal, but it's just having that little bit of breathing room and breathing space where, all right, give it a shot.
Yeah. That's a really high level of awareness that you have there, that you can allow the pendulum to swing without sort of, I find I reprimand myself when I feel in that pendulum swing, like I'm getting off of some sort of a disciplined track. So that's beautiful. I think that's very inspirational for me, at least, to just kind of be like, yeah, you know, sometimes you don't need the hot shower, right? Sometimes a lukewarm shower is what you need at the moment or whatever. I just popped in my mind. But that's awesome. You know, something that's kind of popped up for me, because one of the first things when I met you, what's very striking about you is you have lots of tattoos. And they're gorgeous. And you can see sort of, at least I'm imagining in my own mind, your journey as a human. You can see things that appear again, I'm putting this on you as like different moments in your life. And I can kind of see, like, sometimes I think like, oh, there's a little progression of her. And I'm going to get my first tattoo this year. We're going to get one for our 10th wedding anniversary. So I'm really curious about your experience of getting tattoos, which you obviously enjoy at some level because you continue that process. And that also seems to be the way with people in tattoos. Is like you get one and you kind of open the box, a little Pandora's box. So I'm curious about what your experience is as a yogi of intentionally putting yourself through that experience and what that expression means to you.
That's so cool. I want to know that about Lauren.
I do think it is a meditation. But I will say, to compare just pain in general, especially if people don't have tattoos, and that I will also say, and people think I'm crazy about this, that my labor with Abby, my first daughter, that was my longest meditation ever. And so it is an opportunity to practice that not reacting and to bringing yourself back to balance and bringing yourself to that space where it's like, okay, this is temporary, this is temporary, this is temporary. It's just, and bringing yourself either whether there with the pain or that with your coping techniques. So whether it's your stress management of, breathing or visualization, things like that, and being fully in something like that.
It reminds me. How painful is it? Stop. It reminds me of like a lot of the studies that I'm sure you've read as well, where they study the pain threshold of people that practice meditation versus the pain threshold of people that don't practice meditation, and the pain threshold of meditators is significantly higher.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think that's about?
So it's interesting, and it reminds me of this exercise we did, I think, on the first day of doula training, where they have you put an ice cube in your hand. Yes. Yes.
Try this at home. It is much harder than it sounds.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, you put an ice cube in your hand and you hold it there for a minute with no coping techniques, with nothing, and see how you react and see how long you can do it. And then you do another minute with holding it while you're massaging, or maybe you get a massage from someone else, while you're visualizing, while you're breathing purposefully and really connected like that. And you can really, you just have so much more space to manage and deal with it and cope with it. And it's so much more it's just so much easier versus with nothing. So going in with your tools makes such a big difference. And yeah, it really literally does increase your pain threshold, what you can put up with, because the mind gets like, oh my God, I need to get out of this right now. But if you can all right, wait, slow down, hold up. We can be here with this. We have the capability to do this. It's very reassuring to the body also.
And I've always felt that connection in asana practice, and especially my experience of practicing Ashtanga, that, it's just one opportunity for incredibly intense sensation after another. And I remember the moment where I realized that I wasn't experiencing an asana as painful anymore, but that I had grown curious about the feeling moving around and breathing and how it's interacting. Do you have that? Did you have that as well?
Yes, definitely. And I think also where, what I've learned a lot about too is that when we first get into it, we think that a lot of things are pain, and they're not. And it's just a new sensation. It's just an uncomfortable sensation. We never really want actual pain, crunching, pinching, hurting, anything like that. But you slowly build up your tolerance and your awareness of what is going on. And you can kind of really discriminate between the sensations and figure out all right, what is this really? And versus just get out of it kind of thing, right? Because if we say, oh, this is pain, get out, we know how our bodies react too. But if we can soften a little bit and just say all right, what's really going on? I have this conversation with myself while I'm practicing, and through the experience of practicing through pregnancy and through postpartum, and where it not being, let me get the furthest, which I don't think it really should be anyway. But at times, we've all been at the place where we're yeah, let me do the most, let me go the furthest, let me do the hardest. And really, it's been that experience instead, and maybe people have experience with an injury too, where you have to be fully present and aware and like, where's my boundary, and exploring that.
Your physical adjectives, right? You sort of have these new ways of describing these sensations that you're feeling. Oh, that's so cool.
Lengthening the fuse. I keep coming back to that
cool
you said
idea.
Earlier. Lengthening the fuse. I love that.
Well, something I know that Matt and I both have talked about openly is our anger. And I've had students come up to me. And I've had people, you know, I've talked about how I used to be a thrower, and like I would throw everything like when I was angry, and like there's definitely holes in my parents' walls, like, and you know, just the stuff that it was like literally like my nervous system did not know how to cope with it. I didn't know how to like, you know, be with it, and that was my way. And now we know too, like that, like throwing, like it was me literally like getting out and working through stuff. But oh, I don't remember my point. I got lost for a second. You threw me off, Matt.
Yeah, you're just talking about our anger issues.
Yes. So, and I talked about it one time during a class, and someone was like, no way, did you have anger issues? And I'm like, yeah. It's just I've now been able to lengthen the fuse, and sometimes it all goes away. But learning about it too, and how much I've learned about how willpower also is really a muscle that we can work it, and we can also fatigue it. So, you know, when you like get to a point where you've just like had enough, that's when that's what tells me too, like, I need to get back to my practice. I need to have time for it to be in recovery mode.
And plus you also have that awareness that you're exploding. And I think that was a big moment for me. That first time when I was realizing like, I am freaking out right now, and be like, oh, okay. All right. Well, I have these tools. And also that moment now where you realize like I exploded, and then you got to go to someone. Try to lengthen the fuse. I don't know. Apologizing has been a massive fuse lengthener for me, because if you look someone in the face and you have to apologize for your behavior, it's way more difficult to do it again. It's really very hard, right? And then I don't know, something about that. Plus, it's that parenting thing again, right? You have to actually be the person that you're asking your children to be. You know?
Isn't that a thing?
Oh man.
Yeah, yep. And I have a very smart daughter who will very clearly tell me when I'm doing the things that I tell her not to do.
And thank goodness for them, right? I totally, yes, when they got to be about 4 years old and they were able to say like, Mommy, why are you so stressed out? Or Daddy, why are you so angry? And sometimes we weren't perceiving that we had gotten ourselves there because we had just like funneled ourselves there. And and it was before we were really holding down a structure for both of us to have some time to practice something at least every other day. So we were just like running a nonprofit and just like spiraling through anxiety and anger pretty much all day long, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's the way to run a yoga meditation nonprofit for any of you out there. You want to try to be angry and stressed out at all times and really move from that place in the world.
It feels great.
It's the way to do it.
And then expect everyone else to do it.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do these practices. They're really helpful. Yeah, that was a big wake-up call for me, because I went through my whole life just operating in this sort of mode, regardless of what I was doing, with no, you know, it doesn't matter how you do it, it's what you're doing. Like, did you accomplish that? Did the can get kicked? That was like always my way of like figuring things out. And then one day Ginny just said to me, like, there is no reason for you to do this if you were just suffering, like endlessly suffering with supposedly doing some sort of good works out there. And that was my big wake-up call, because then it was kind of like, well, how, like, what other things am I doing this, right? Like, I don't know. You can't be a good dad and also be pissed off all the time, or whatever that is. Like, even if I'm teaching you the right values verbally, it's really irrelevant if I'm not in any way showing that and behaving in that way. I'm so grateful for my kids. They've been the greatest teacher of yoga for me, because I just, you know, it's
we have our furry child.
Oh yeah, she's always got to be here.
Our non-furry children let her out.
Yeah,
she's coughing. Yeah, because it's probably bothering them. So they're like, go outside. And she has this habit. I don't know if she's got She's part goat.
Lauren probably knows what she's missing. She's eating charcoal, Lauren. Why do we need
What
activated?
is she missing? Because she finds charcoal and tries to eat it.
Activated charcoal? Isn't that a
It's
thing?
not activated. It's just charcoal. But anything. I mean, she's just a goat. I don't know. So if you have any cushion for her, she could use them.
Interesting. I'm not sure. I might have to ask my uncle, who's a vet.
There you go. But everything you just said brings me back to something that you just said that I would love to hear you say more about, which is when your willpower is fatigued and when you know you need to rest. And I know from knowing you that you have exercised this muscle of knowing, and like, you know, the difference between I am like in a head spin so I can't motivate myself to do this thing that I know will make me feel better versus I need to not do that thing. I need to do a more restful thing, which I know most Western people really struggle with. So how do you like work on that thermometer with yourself?
A lot of it is honesty. And like, you know, who are we hiding from when we're lying to ourselves? Like, so.
Oh, no. I do it all the time.
Yeah. And I definitely have, but it's like truly creating and working on that relationship with yourself of being more honest. And I will say a lot of the times why we're not honest is because of that shaming we give to ourselves, of that, we discipline ourselves of like finger wagging of like, why didn't you? You should be doing this. You know this, right? Like so many things we know we should be doing, but we don't. And it's like in that in between is this like, oh, it's like sandpaper, like rubbing on you and it can hurt. But instead, if we can use it and where it's like, okay, the person that reacts to when you aren't doing it can be kinder and can be like just really there for you. So that's a big part of it is really like, I try not to shame myself. I try to be forgiving of myself and compassionate. And that because I know the other way doesn't work for me. I know if someone's going to yell at me and is going to shame me and like make fun of me, I'm going to feel like I'm done. So I was really done with having that with myself and knew that over time, like being kinder, being gentler, because if we see even how we interact with other people, right? Like partners and friends, like if someone was shaming us constantly, we wouldn't want to be around them.
Yes.
So when we do, so that's what I really think it comes down to too, is like who we are when we're by ourselves in our heads and that relationship we have with ourselves. And I try to be a lot more forgiving and a lot more compassionate to myself and honest. And that allows me the space to explore and to really like kind of play around and see like, what is it that I need? And another question you had said about like, you know, like, how do I know like what to do kind of thing? Or like, how do I motivate myself? And my trick, this is like silly, is like do really passive stuff. Like do like the easiest version. Like, all right, a guided meditation versus guiding myself at the time. Someone leading something versus me. So I can just even be kind of a passive participant at first, where I'm kind of just like going through the motions a little bit. But then when I start that, I get more on a roll where it's a lot easier. And then I experience that little bit of, oh, this is what I was looking for. This is how I usually feel, or this is how I want to feel. This is where I want to come from. And then it's like that reminder, and I keep coming back to that.
And, you know, it reminds me so much of both of our friend Morgan, at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was tuning into practicing with her, and it was like chairs and blocks and blankets and all this stuff that I had never, ever brought into my home practice. And she was sharing that, you know, it's okay to to support ourselves, and that it's okay to not always call on ourselves to just like be it, you know, without that we can build a structure for ourselves and, you know, physically and spiritually where Luna, where we can let ourselves be held. And what's so cool about what you just said is that sometimes I do feel guilty or like I'm phoning it in. Like this morning, we've had a lot of like life householder stressors lately, and a very stressful morning in that way. And I went upstairs and I just couldn't get myself settled. And so I actually pulled out Insight Timer and typed in the name, and I did your stress reduction, 12-minute stress reduction, which was so good. and I was so grateful I had done that because I couldn't get myself in there on my own. But then a part of me was like, you know, that like shame thing where I'm like, well, why can't I, you know? And I love that you just phrased it in a way that it's like, we are meant to be supported by each other. If the way to go there is to let yourself be guided in there, like there's no shame there.
Yep, totally. Like give the support, you know, be that passive in it. And I think that that's so much, you know, you're still showing up.
Yeah.
And the more you show up, the more even in like those little spaces and those little bits of time, they add up. And it becomes that, I think, easier go-to where you are really like convinced like, oh, this does work. Or you know that, all right, I'll get to that in a day or two. Like where I'm not doing every practice that I want to do. I can't be on in every area every day. So that's where I also am able to do it more sustainably, where I don't put that pressure of, all right, now do this, and check everything off every day. Where it's like picking a couple of the most important things or the most impactful or what can fit in that day and knowing that that's what's going to get done today.
I hope you write a book someday or something like that. Because I feel like it would be
practical
such a
guide
great,
to life.
Yes, I feel like we would write everyone. I feel like I would like that like handbook binder kind of thing, Lauren, about like my food and my habits and all of that.
That's really beautiful stuff, Lauren. It's one of my biggest struggles is still to just not beat up on myself for not doing this or doing too much of that or whatever that is. And I really like that idea of allowing myself to be passive. I have some success when I go third person, you know, like if I talk to myself as like this other entity and then I behave like I would if I was watching this poor sap here and just like try to comfort him. Like, you got good hair, boo. You got good hair. You know what I mean? And so like something about that third person will give me that distance. And maybe it's that passivity that you're talking about where it doesn't feel so like, you're doing this. It's sort of like, well, that's okay. You're just a person and, you know, you're just an idiot like everybody else. It's okay. So I love that I can kind of maybe utilize that to just ease in to these things. Because, yes, I do have that personality that even when I'm in third person, I'm like, come on, baby, suck it up here, pal.
In case you're new to United We Own, you now know that, like, we're a group of people that we don't, like, pretend anything. There's no mask. We don't pull any punches. Yeah. We're really...
Well, except in the grocery store. Well, pandemic humor.
I love that you shared that, Matt. And I think that I'm the same way, too, in a lot of ways, where that is my go-to, what you said. And I've had to work on that relationship. And sometimes it's like, so I remember someone explained to me, I took this like meditation class one time and they kind of explained it where like, all right, here's you. And then you're meditating and you're watching your thoughts and you zoom out a little bit. And then you see that you're judging and watching these thoughts. So you have to zoom out a little bit and then just like, you know, keep zooming out. And that idea of like, when you get too in it, just like take a little step back a little bit. And so like I said, that third person kind of like you're watching, you're witnessing kind of thing can be really helpful. And when you see you're going to your like go-to habits of like, say you're literally like making fun of yourself or something or saying these bad, mean things about yourself, it's then like, think about that, like stepping back from that and observing that and saying like, all right, how do I want to start to carry forward in this relationship?
Go general. I like that. One of my teachers says that a lot of times because it's easy when you're looking at your specificity of your life. It can be easy to point out the things that are not working or whatever that may be. But when you go general, like it's all working, it's all rocking, you know. And like, and if whenever I'm in that really bad moment, I just go back to being like, I'm really grateful that the Earth is spinning in the perfect proximity to other planets in the sun. Really grateful for that. Didn't have to do a thing. There it is. I love that. That's really beautiful. I really love the way you shared that. Just like continuing to broaden out, go a little further, step back. Because when you step back, it's all working, right?
Yeah, usually. And then if it looks like it's not, then you have to zoom out more.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. There you go.
Lengthen your fuse. Yeah. Zoom out. Be kind to yourself. Yeah. I could work on these things for a year, and it would be.
Oh God, I'm on year 39.
No, I mean like these, you know, it's just you have such a beautiful way of really like not getting, you know, lost in the like the show, you know, you always bring everything. And you know, if you have, do you have a few more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, because there's a conversation that we were having with Morgan and Joe recently that I've been wanting to hear your feelings on, because I've watched you share practice at the Behavioral Health Center on the women's unit to such beautiful impact. And what really struck me about it was there was quite a bit of asana. And everybody was really having fun and got really settled down and really, really calm. And it was totally different from, you know, what I have seen when other teachers shared a lot of asana, that sometimes it got a little, like, people got a little agitated or in their head and all of that. We were talking about how Joe said, you know, the Buddha, you know, had this whole life, you know, where like he renounced his family and he went off to the woods and all of that and did some really extreme things. And then in the end returned and said, take the middle path. And we were laughing about how like, it's so easy to say that when we've been practicing every practice we can get our hands on for like 10, 20 years. It's hard for me to sometimes remember what it felt like to not just be able to like have this holistic understanding, but that when I first came to this practice, it really was like it was the first kosha. It was really like this shape and how I feel in the shape of my breath. I have an enormous challenge, remembering that, and you clearly don't, because you manage to bring what I would say is like a core understanding of why you were all really there, which I'll let you share, like why that is for you, and kind of weave it through many shapes in a way that was so engaging and satisfying, and yet you weren't sacrificing the nervous system regulation and the single pointed focus. Where does that come from in you? Like, is there any advice or any mindset that you've cultivated that allows you to do that? Because I think it's really special.
Thank you. That's because that's the main lens that I first learned it through, was physical. That was my introduction, where I started yoga for weight loss, and I started at a gym, and then I was like, something is happening. Something is going on here, and I'm going to keep coming back. And it wasn't that I was losing weight. Like, yes, my body was changing, but it was really just, I couldn't even put my finger on it. I just knew that something was happening. So like you said, it's the first kosha, it's the first layer, and we have to go through it to get to the deeper ones. And it's that, I think so often too, and this is, you know, I do teach a combination of physical movement, of meditation, of breathing, and of philosophy, and, you know, bringing those lessons. I think it's really bringing the deeper lessons to the surface. You know, like kind of making them so you can understand them through that initial lens and through that initial layer. Because so often, and I think so many of the people that were in those classes that we're talking about, it's constantly going and constantly like distraction here, distraction there, being pulled in all these directions. And instead, when it's now this opportunity to just bring your attention in this room, that's like a huge step for people. And I think of it like that, where you kind of like draw back in towards you, instead of we're always like, you know, going outward. And instead, like, just start to draw it in a little bit. Just start to kind of like reel it in. And I say like a magnet, like you're a magnet, you're pulling your own energy back inward. So it's like that experience too, we know with, you know, the different, you know, limbs of yoga, that we have these different layers of like, we have concentration that leads to meditation, that then leads to this, you know, fully encompassed in it. And it's like kind of using it to take like the stairs there. Like, you know, like, let's get it to this concentration. I don't care. It really doesn't matter what the focus is on so much. It's just, let's get that first layer of focus and then start to shine the light in.
And it takes so much patience and faith, just listening to you speak. Those are like the core things that are coming up for me as I listen to you, like that you have so much patience and faith in each person's ability to walk those stairs in the time they need to.
And the
More than
patience.
faith, honestly, it strikes me as a knowing. There's like a level of understanding that you have that faith sort of requires, like, well, maybe it won't, but you know, I believe it will. But yours is like more of like, it's just a knowing that's there, a knowing in the way that, you know, when the leaves change or when they bud, that the leaves are coming or going. Like there's that, you know, there's a sense of that natural feeling and process. I love that. God, you got the depth. You got it.
But I also like to bring up, like you said, with the patience, if we think about too, where, and I bring this back to a physical posture because it's an easy way to wrap, not easy, but it's an easier way, a more accessible way to wrap your head around it. It's something tangible. It's something here. It's something that we can see and we can feel, and we can see those changes. And maybe that lends itself to that faith that, oh, maybe something else can change too. Where I see this changing when I'm putting effort into it. What if I put effort into these other things, right? I put effort into a handstand and I see how it changes from none to then being able to get some hang time. Now your relationship with yourself, you see at first it's some kicking, it's some trying, all right. And then over time that, hey, you get some hang time there. So it's like kind of just drawing that parallel of seeing where, okay, I can see it on a physical, and you can have that really knowing on a physical, and then to translate that to the different layers, and really, you know, maybe anything is possible.
No.
But yeah, but what I was going to say about the physical is, and how to be patient with this is, if we think about, we see someone in a yoga pose for the first time, you know, and I know at times in my teaching history and career that I see, oh, there's like 10 things I want to change, right? Like, oh, but we have to get to the most, like, what's accessible right now? What's going to, like, you know, negate any danger going on? So we start with things like that, where what's going to create the safety first. And then over time, we can start to give different pieces and different cues. Because if we give all 20 cues that one first time, it's that thing shutting down, like, I don't want to do this. No. But if someone's more patient with you and you feel like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm really doing it. And then over time, you also become more open to, oh, there's a different way to do it. Okay, I can try this out. And really, like, explore things like that from that more, the place where I said of more patience and more compassion, versus if we told someone 20 different corrections, they might say, I'm doing it wrong. I'm just wrong. I can't even do this simple thing right? And like beat themselves up. But so that's where it comes from, is that we can do it and plant seeds. And oh God, we know also that in the karma classes, we might see someone once and never again.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's a seed that, you know, we can plant too. And I have to detach from, are they going to now have this love for yoga down the road? I don't know. But did they feel good today? I hope so.
Those seeds really are everything, right? I mean, it's not just in a karma project, but that's when I think I started to really blossom, when I started to think of all these little interactions as sort of seeds. And I really dig that. I like that as an image that you have there. It's every little moment is that interaction, that opportunity. Like it may not result in anything now, but if I made that person feel a little bit better in that moment, that's going to translate on and grow and grow and grow. And you know, I'm sure you're familiar with Wayne Dyer. You know, everybody in this industry is, and there's a scientific thing that he quotes all the time, where if somebody just shows an act of kindness, like if I did an act of kindness to you, obviously you would feel better in that act of kindness, but not only do you feel better, I feel better. But when it gets really cool is that Jenny just witnessing the act of kindness is made to feel better. And so when you put those seeds in, it sometimes starts to feel almost like gathering, well, there's our dog. She really wants attention at the moment, whatever it is. She's just very frustrated. But I feel like it's like more like Johnny Appleseed. You know, you're kind of like rolling around, throwing them. Like, but that's just you. That's your fairy dust. That's kind of what magic is.
And you know what? We try our best and show up as our best that we can at that time. And then it's like, all right, I did my best. What more can I do? Nothing.
Yeah.
And that comes back to your kindness to yourself.
Yeah, that's your beauty.
Not like shaming yourself, but being like, I've done what I can do. And this is why we love to learn from you, Lauren, and we love to spend time with you and hear your thoughts on all of the work we do together. Because, I mean, it expresses through you in such a way. It's just so a part of who you are that we could read books about karma and action and, you know, releasing expectations and all that. I feel like it's just something that you came in with already, you know, for us to learn from. And we're so grateful for that and so many other things about you.
Thank you. Thank you. And really, I mean, like we said, and I always, and that's the thing too, is being honest with myself, but I try to be as transparent and as honest as possible. And I think that that's helpful we know too in the work that we do that regulated nervous systems, they feel good to other people, right? Like, and being able to experience that also gives these other people an opportunity, like a peek into it. And that's what these talks are too, a peek into what it's like, and to maybe like try it on and to witness it, like you said, with those good acts, and witness it and feel it and have like a little taste of maybe this is something that I can do.
Yes. And you can do it. You can do it with Lauren. And so I want to leave time here to share all the different ways that folks can interact with you, because I just can't encourage it enough, really. So on the United We Own
you can find her on there.
In our bio link, it's going to say Practice with Lauren. She recorded beautiful prenatal yoga series when she was still pregnant with her beautiful baby Indy. They're up there. And also meditations. They're all migrating over to YouTube, so they'll be really easy to find and also to share with anybody that you know that would benefit. But also, Lauren, you have so many things going on your end, and I'd love for you to just like leave some threads here of that.
So funny that Matt said a book. I don't have a book, but I do have a workbook that is like a little guide on all of these areas that you can check out on my page also. So it's something that either you can go through on your own, or you can go through with me as your guide. Also, I do a lot of one-on-one work because I do help people in like that show up. You know, it's hard to show up, but when you have someone that you know is rooting for you, and you have someone that is going to guide you in this kinder, more compassionate way through the process, it tends to be a lot easier to show up and not cancel on me. So stuff like that, that's some of my favorite ways to work. I have free resources listed on my page also. Like Jenny said, I'm an insight timer, just some recorded meditations.
An insight timer. It's so good. Yes.
And that has definitely been an interesting, experience, where putting yourself out there for people to judge you and to say, and literally review you and say like, you know, either it's amazing, or to say that like, no, this wasn't my cup of tea. So that's been a really funny experience, I will say, really opening it up to like, hey, come on in and review me.
Wow, what a practice.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yes. I recently had one that I don't know, someone said something about the way that I said inhale, exhale, and like was like, oh, it was pretty good, but did it annoy anyone else the way that she said inhale, exhale? I just couldn't focus or something, and I was like, oh my God, should I delete it? Like, but then I literally had to have that conversation with myself of like, step back, like, what does it really matter anyway? It doesn't, because all of these are
virtual prop that human was having
person,
that.
Yeah. Yep. So like I said, being honest and everything, that I'm still doing this practice every day. And I know that, like you said, the work is not done. And it's, you know, I do my best, and I try to not take it personally. And I try to keep showing up and doing it. But it is a practice. And I think that's so amazing that there's so much more to do, versus I'm not just like, all right, I'm done. Like, no, there's still more in there. And, yeah, so I have those kind of offerings, free resources, some mid-tier, some things that also we can work privately together. And, or even if you want to just follow along with my journey, I'm working on, you know, sharing different components of that and finding my own way of that and my boundaries of like, how much do I want to share? Who really wants to listen?
Oh, a whole other part 2, conversation with Lauren part 2. But I will say that following you on Instagram, I love it, because I always know that if I need to just like touch base with something I know I want to do for myself, all I have to do is head to you, and I'm going to find like that encouragement. So I encourage everybody to check out your Instagram feed. It is like the most loving, inspiring, holistic place to be on Instagram, I think. It's so encouraging.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot. It's been a process to create that too, and I'm really happy that that's coming across, and that means a lot from you. Two of my favorite people that, like I said, it's just been so beautiful to see. I love everything United We Own, and it's been a part of my own journey. And I will leave you with one more thing. Is what's really funny, because you mentioned about the karma class and me teaching at Zucker Hillside, the behavioral unit. So I got a letter in the mail the other day, and it was a bill. And I was like, it was a medical bill. And I was like, what the heck is this? It was from 2012 of when I was in the behavioral unit. And it was like, whoa, just to literally see, like, and to have that, like, brought about of, like, look at how far you've come. Like, yes, it's a bill, but, like, to come in the mail, and it was really just a sign of, like, acknowledge how far you've come. And even, like, a certain thing of smoking cessation fee, where, like, you know, they charged you for, like, this little, I used to smoke cigarettes, and I no longer do, but at the time, and it was, like, this little, like, plastic thing, and they charged, like, $100 for, like, counseling of it. I'm like, what? But it was, like, I wasn't even, like, angry. It was just a matter of, like, wow, look how far you've come. Like, and to literally be getting a bill in the mail 10 years later for this experience of being in, you know, where I got to a place where I needed that external help. And I think when I left there, I was able to see, like, wow, I really need to cultivate these inner tools, and I really need to find a way to, you know, like, fix this and change this, because it was not working out. And so to be able to now, I would love to get back into there eventually. I know we've been shut down, but it's just knowing that, you know, having that opportunity to connect with myself. I didn't have that, and I didn't have that space or that voice that told me, like, hey, it's okay. It's all right to be where you are. You don't need to change it. And that's the thing too, is, like, it's not that you need to, like, become aware and change it, like, right there. It's like you can have that space between where you're just aware of what you want to change. And because you need to kind of figure those things out first. And then you can kind of create a plan of action of, like, all right, now what are we going to do? I want to, you know, I'm stuck with myself, I say, but, like, and now how do I make this a more enjoyable experience?
Yeah. Oh, Lauren, it's actually raining, and neither of us have wanted to move because we're just, like, so enjoying listening to you. I could feel like it's just a little rain. What were you saying, Lauren? Tell me again. Yes. Oh, okay. What are we going to do about it? Yes. Really, we're going to have part two. We're going to have part two with everyone we've spoken to so far, because I leave these conversations excited to continue these conversations. So thank you for taking this time.
Thank you very much, Lauren.
And we look forward to this the next one, which will happen soon.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Blessing.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Thank you both so much, and thank you for this opportunity to connect and express myself here, as well as through classes, and just to really expand, like, you know, and see what's available, and see, like, how to share these practices even more without boundaries too, which is an absolutely beautiful thing. Because yeah, this is my career, and but I want to make it accessible to people, right? And I want to make it available to everybody, but I can't personally give everything away for free.
Yeah.
But you guys come in and you make this connection in this space where, don't worry, we'll give it.
Yes. Yes. Part two.
Yes.
To be continued.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
definitely.
It was great to see you. And
Thank you.
Can't wait to meet your new baby.
Oh my gosh, go to our page. You'll see Lauren and her two little babies in their little human shirts. It's like, and it just made my year. They're so cute.
Oh, thank you both so much. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you soon.
All right, you too. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye,
for
friend.
joining,
Bye.
everyone.